Frostburg football has a long storied tradition of excellence in winning. Some people view football as a barbaric sport in which men just hit each other with reckless abandonment and with no care for their body. But not these two players. Derek Shilley, the starting fullback for Frostburg, and Josh Volpe, the starting quarterback for Frostburg, love the sport and wouldn't change a thing about it.
I play football because simply it's the greatest game ever invented on the face of the earth.
He was in the best shape of his entire life. He's a 22-year-old who was lifting weights and running all summer to make for his teammates, to make this their best, season ever.
I never in a million years thought that something he loved so much that something like this would happen.
What we've been told happened that day was, it was a Monday morning, kind of a run up the middle kind of drill. Derek played fullback. So, play after play, they would run up the middle and, simulate that. Often when they run those plays, there's a lot of violent contact and hits. They went back to the locker rooms. They changed out of full uniforms back into lighter attire to go back out later on that morning. Derek again was participating in all those plays and eventually started to complain that his head was hurting, and by the time he could get over to the sidelines and have the trainers look at him, he had collapsed from his brain trauma.
We were told on the phone, what were we, 3 hours from Frostburg at least, that he was being taken to surgery and that he probably wouldn't survive the surgery.
Chris and I were asked by the physicians many times, was Derek in a car accident? We said no, it was a football injury. They asked us several times, was he not wearing a helmet when he got hit? No, he was wearing a helmet. Again, a very much of a mystery to us, how basically I took him up and dropped him off for the camp, and 1 week later he had sustained so much head trauma in 1 week that he passed away from those injuries. The doctors, from looking at his medical records, believe that he suffered from what they call second impact syndrome. Second impact syndrome is fatal, but it's also preventable. And second impact syndrome is when someone has a concussion, and before they recover from that first concussion, they get a second concussion. And both of those concussions can be small, but it's the cumulative effect of having one before the other one, clears up, recovers from that can lead to massive brain swelling. And I think that's one of the keys about concussions, is that oftentimes it's the teammates or the parents that have to tell the individual they have a concussion, because the individual that has a concussion has an altered brain functions, and they may not always know they have a concussion. And it's important for parents to know and look for the signs and symptoms in their children. They can be very subtle and easily passed on as something else. They could be emotional signs, they could be difficulty sleeping, they could be dizziness and blurriness. Your son or daughter does not need to be knocked unconscious to have a concussion.
I think you keep going up the levels and you feel more and more responsibility on your shoulders for your team.
A lot of athletes, football players in general, but a lot of athletes want to continue to play through injuries, want to do it for themselves, do it for their teammates, do it for their parents, do it for their coaches. You need to remove them from the contact and make sure that they get the proper rest and recovery under a physician's care. Okay, and not be bullied in or pressured into putting, either the athlete or your, son or daughter back into the game, and that's key. One of the things that the Derek Shilley Foundation is doing is a case study on Derek. And the reason for that is to try and learn one small lesson that we could pass on to other families, other coaches, other trainers, to prevent this from happening to somebody else.
What we're trying to do with our awareness campaign is to reach younger people so they can recognize the signs and symptoms, and they can self-report, and they can watch out for their teammates.
If you were to tell a parent, your son or daughter has a concussion, or if you were to tell a parent your son or daughter had a brain injury, and you would say, which one would you rather that they have? You know, I think almost every parent would say, I'd rather them have a concussion than a brain injury. Well, it's a trick question. A concussion is a brain injury. The term concussion is just a watered down term that we throw around every day that really means a brain injury. You know, we're not trying to end sports, change sports. We just want parents and athletes to not treat concussions lightly. You know, we need to see the NFL players, the NHL players, the professional soccer players, you know, openly talking about, you know, concussions, brain injuries, openly, you know, pulling these folks out of the games as soon as they, you know, have these injuries. That's going to be important to change the overall culture and thought process of the kids.
We just felt that Derek was interrupted. This is just a small way for us to continue for him when we're not crying, when we're not screaming. We work on the foundation.
You know, he was a hero. He was always thinking about other people. He was an organ donor. He ended up saving many lives. We really do hope, you know, through this foundation, through the Derek Shealy Foundation, that, you know, both his name, his legacy, and his spirit will continue to be able to help people, and that he'll be able to help some, you know, 5-year-old prevent them from getting a brain injury. Everything you do in life is a risk. Walking across the street is a risk, but you want to know what those dangers are so that you as the individual can just make a decision whether you want to put yourself at that risk for whatever the reward is.
One of the great traditions they have at Frostburg is a rock that they touch outside of the field. I recently sat down with the players to ask them what that rock means to them and what it signifies.
We touch the rock before every practice and before every game. And what it signifies is that we're giving everything we have, whether it's a practice or a game. And if a person isn't going to give everything they have during that game, they need to keep their hands off the rock.